Okay, I'm going to start class by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Good morning. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to everyone who's online joining us as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is a little bit later, because we start each one of our classes with meditation. What we do here is I help students to be able to make their way to enlightenment. This is based in the teachings of the Buddha. What enlightenment is where you train your mind to get to a mental state where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. An enlightened being will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this has been eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing you to be angry or frustrated, but this is just a lack of wisdom that the unenlightened mind has, that it doesn't understand true reality, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And because your mind is actually causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. When you train in the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning and growing and developing now in this life. And now as you're examining and investigating the teachings of the Buddha, you actually reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice his teachings. And as you're practicing his teachings, you're training your mind. You're uprooting certain pollutions in the mind that the Buddha discovered. And this is what ultimately produces the enlightened mind through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So meditation is an important component of your practice to be able to get to enlightenment, but it's not the only thing that you need. So that's why after the meditation, I'm going to be sharing some teachings to help you guys understand some of the things that the Buddha taught. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that we start is with some chanting to ease the mind into meditation. And if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. I have the chants on laminated sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to laminated sheets. You're going to see the chants that I do, and then there's English translations as well. During the lifetime of the Buddha, everything he taught was oral. He just spoke, and people listened to what he had to say, and they committed his teachings to memory. They used the chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, so that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they remembered the teachings. So you can see through the origins of chanting that there isn't any rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer here. That's not what this is. This is actually, during the lifetime of the Buddha, used as a learning tool, as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Where nowadays we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Because as you're chanting, you're kind of exercising the mind. You're helping to build memory and clarity of mind, awareness of mind, and awareness of the breath. So if you choose to chant along, it's actually going to help you to ease into the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you read the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be like ego and arrogance. And someone who's gotten to enlightenment, they don't think of themselves as being above other people. They just think of themselves as being equal. Surely a Buddha would not think of themselves as being above other people. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, the sadness, and the frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is enlightenment, and this teacher was just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, they didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for that person too. And that's where I suspect these chants came from, is from his students, either during his life or after his death, because people would have had an enormous amount of respect for him. Because even today, there's people that have an enormous amount of respect because they can see that his teachings lead exactly where he said they do, to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. Just understand that it's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or any of that kind of stuff. The Buddha actually never taught any of those kinds of things. If you've seen those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, it's not from the Buddha. Those are misunderstandings that people are practicing today, 2,500 years after his death. Once we're in the meditation, having done the chanting, I'm going to provide you some guidance. You'll hear me kind of instructing you and teaching you and guiding you in the meditation while we're actually meditating. And then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. During that period of time where it's quiet, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a bird chirping, a dog barking, someone might sneeze or cough. This is all normal. This is how the world functions, that the world is impermanent, that you're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If your mind has a craving for permanent silence during meditation, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed because your mind's craving permanence, but yet you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing around you. So if you understand this, when you hear a sound during meditation, you're going to know that it arises, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. It's impermanent, it's temporary. So you can just be in meditation and be unaffected by any kind of sound that's going on around you. So you can train your mind this way to be unaffected by all the impermanence that you're experiencing. But the unenlightened mind craves permanence. It wants things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So during that period of time of quietness, we'll just all be meditating. Everybody here and anybody who's joining us online, we'll just all be meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand what the Pali Canon and English study group is, and then we'll kind of participate in that together. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And he taught these 4 positions because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's just not possible. You're going to need these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment. And you would learn these in your journey. You would learn what they are and how to use them and why you would use them. But oftentimes people are starting in the seated position. So I'll provide you some guidance on the seated position just to help you kind of get started. In terms of the positions for meditation, there isn't just one right way to sit or one right way to do any of the things that the Buddha is teaching you in terms of the meditation, in terms of sitting or standing or any kind of body position. It's not about training your body. It's about training the mind. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. So you can really sit however you're comfortable. Whatever you would like to do, you can sit however you're comfortable, whether it's something I share with you or not. You can sit whichever way you like. But in terms of what I share with you, these are just recommendations or things for you to consider to help you find more comfort. If you're on the floor, you might sit with some cushions under your rear. This kind of helps soften your seat and makes it more comfortable for you. If you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if your legs were real tight, it could impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So if that's comfortable for you, you could use that. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. Again, if this is comfortable for you, you can use that, but it's not about everyone doing it the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And then for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, anybody who's sitting in any other way, you can also sit however you're comfortable. Sometimes people like to sit with their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. It'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, your mind could be overactive or uptight. You would like your mind to be attentive and alert because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert while you're training it. So having the sternum up and shoulders back will help you to keep your mind attentive and alert, and it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with some guidance to be able to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see you all here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. This meditation is called Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. This is one of the primary forms of training that the Buddha used in order to move his mind to enlightenment. What a Buddha does is they figure out how to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And during that person's lifetime, countless people will get to enlightenment. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. What they essentially do is they figure out these pollutions that are in the mind and how to uproot those. There's certain tools and techniques that you can apply in order to uproot these pollutions. But the average person doesn't even know that these exist in the mind. What we tend to do with our lack of wisdom in the unenlightened state is we go around and we blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. But this isn't actually true. This is the lack of wisdom that the mind has, that it will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes when people are learning this meditation and they hear the guidance, they think that it's to eliminate their thoughts. As long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. You can't eliminate your thoughts. The difference is that in the unenlightened state, when you're meditating, you'll have a bombardment of thoughts, lots and lots and lots and lots of thoughts. Or you'll have a thought and then you'll follow it for a period of time. You'll indulge in it. You'll play with it. You'll look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. Well, that's what an unenlightened being experiences because they don't have control of their mind. They don't have discipline of their mind. In the enlightened mental state, they still have thoughts thoughts during meditation. But the difference is as soon as they have a thought, they notice it and they cut it off and let it go. And then there's the stillness and quietness in between their thoughts. And then they'll eventually have another thought, right? Where in the unenlightened state, it's like thought. You might have experienced that during your meditation. So if that's what you experienced, it's completely normal. That's what you'll experience as you're first learning this meditation. Or you'll indulge in a thought and follow it for a period of time. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and to be able to let them go. When you're noticing your thoughts, this is what's called mindfulness or awareness of mind. Because when your mind's on the breath, your mind's focused, it's concentrated. But when the mind moves off the breath, you need to be aware of that. That's your mindfulness or awareness of mind. And then you would like to be able to let go of that thought and come back to the breath. This is disciplining your mind and controlling your mind. Because in the unenlightened state, you don't have control of your mind. That's why you get angry. That's why you get sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or any of these other discontent feelings like guilt, shame, fear, stress, and other things like this. But when you discipline your mind, you can actually control your mind. You actually can get to the point where you don't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated because it's being caused by the mind holding on. The mind is craving, it's longing, it's yearning. It's wanting things to be a certain way. It's expecting things to be a certain way. And when the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy, it gets excited, it gets elated, it gets pleasant feelings based on the condition that it's getting what it wants. But then when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry or sad or frustrated or any of those other painful feelings. And then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness and things like this. So it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings because it's longing, yearning, it's craving permanence. So for example, if you look outside and you see it's sunny and you get so excited because it's sunny outside, yeah, I can go hiking today. Well, then when you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining, you'll be sad, you'll be frustrated. Because with the sun, your mind was getting what it wanted, which was the sun. But then when it was raining, you can't go outside hiking, you can't play outside, and now the mind's frustrated because it's not getting what it wants. It's expecting and wanting that sun to be permanent, but it's not permanent. So if you base your inner feelings of happiness on the sun, because the sun is not permanent, your happiness is not permanent. As soon as that condition changes, your mind is going to move to painful feelings like anger, sadness, or frustration. Or say, for example, you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here. Well, then when it goes down here, you're going to get sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's all that it is. When we went from rain or we went from sun to rain, it's just change. When we go from the bank account balance being here to here, all that's happened is change. But the mind craves permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. If you can think about when you were with that boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe you guys first got together, you were so happy and so excited because you had this new person in your life. They're showing you affection. You're going to the movies. You're going to dinner. They're calling you and checking in on you. Maybe you're having great conversations, taking walks in the park. Maybe you're even having sexual contact. Maybe you're so happy, so thrilled, so many pleasant feelings. But then when you guys broke up, you were angry and sad and frustrated or some other discontent feeling. Maybe you were lonely or bored or you were missing this person. It wasn't your love that was causing that. It was the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't actually cause the painful feelings and all these other discontent feelings. So for example, you can see this in your relationship, like if you've had someone close to you die. Maybe if grandma or grandpa, mom or dad or brothers or sisters are alive, you're happy. But that when they die, the mind's not getting what it wants, what it's craving, which is grandma and grandpa to be permanently in your life, or mom or dad to be in your life permanently. So now you might grieve or feel sorrow or sad. You're not a bad person if this is occurring because every unenlightened being experiences this. It's just what the mind does when it's holding on and it's craving permanence, that it wants this person to be permanent in your life, when in reality they aren't permanent. So as long as you crave permanence, while you live in an impermanent world, you will struggle and have difficulties. So what this meditation is doing is training your mind to let go, let go, let go, where you can understand, well, of course grandma died because she was born. She had to die, right? She was impermanent. That's the only reason why people die, is because they're born. And because we were born, we die. That's the impermanent nature of the world. It's just like the wind blows. It's the same reason, right? Everything around us is constantly changing. But if we crave permanence, and we crave for grandma and grandpa or other people to be permanent in our life, when they die, an individual will struggle with that. So you can train your mind and transform it where you don't have to experience the sadness and the sorrow and the grief and the stress and the anxiety. You can get to the point where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is the enlightened mental state, where your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming. Because when you have these pollutions in your mind, you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile in your relationships, and you'll tend to blame it on other people. And you'll think other people are causing you to be bitter, harsh, and hostile. And when you put out that bitterness and hostility, it's going to come right back to you. You can look at your relationships and you can see in the situations where you're bitter and harsh and hostile, that all comes right back to you. So this meditation is training your mind to let go, to let go, to let go, because that's what's going to train your mind to be able to be peaceful and joyful. And you can see this to be true because think about that boyfriend or girlfriend that you were with. When you guys first broke up, you might have been angry or lonely or bored or missing this person. But at some point, your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And then your peace and your joy came back. Or you're like, you know what? If she wants to live in another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace came back. Right? And if you let go of the people who have died in your life, if you understand like, wow, you can just be appreciative that you had this person in your life, rather than think about that you've lost something. Instead, you've gained something. You've gained this wonderful person in your life. There's no reason to hold on to them and crave for them to be permanent and think that you've lost something, because you haven't lost anything at all. You've actually gained something. But this is the way that the mind's going to look at it when it doesn't have the wisdom to understand impermanence, that not everybody's permanent in your life. So if you train your mind with this meditation regularly, you'll get that awareness of mind where you're aware what's going on in your mind, and you'll be able to let go and let go and let go. So now when the anger is starting to arise, you'll notice it with your mind, and then you can let go. But if you're not training your mind this way, you wouldn't be able to do that. So if you do this meditation as well as other teachings that the Buddha teaches you to be able to train your mind, eventually the anger won't even arise, because the causes and conditions that are producing it have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. That there's no longer any what's called craving, desire, attachment, want, expectation, this longing, this yearning, craving for things to be permanent, that it's been completely eliminated out of the mind, that you instead pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making. Because what the unenlightened mind will do is it'll chase. It's chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. It thinks more money is going to make you happy, or a boyfriend or girlfriend is going to make you happy, or that bigger house is going to make you happy, or that nicer car, or that better job. And the mind will chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. And you'll get happy temporarily, but then it'll fade away. This is why you get so excited when you get a brand new job, but then after 3 to 6 months or a year, you don't really like it anymore. Because the mind, it's like a dog chasing after an animal. You catch the rabbit and kill it, and then the dog is like bored with the rabbit. It just doesn't even like it anymore. It doesn't even eat it, right? It just enjoyed the chase, right? And if the mind's not doing that, the mind will swing all the way to the other side, where it's dull and lethargic and lazy and feeling unmotivated. That's what the unenlightened mind will do, is it'll swing back and forth like this. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to come to the middle, where you can gradually train your mind to pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest through wise decision making, rather than chasing. Because when you're chasing after things, you can only be happy if you get what you want. And because you live in an impermanent world, you can't always get what you want. And then if your mind's not there and it swings to this other side where it's dull and lethargic or lacking motivation, you can't be peaceful and joyful there either. So that's why if you come to the middle way and you train your mind to gradually practice the middle way, you can actually be completely peaceful and joyful, because you can work towards goals, objectives, or interests, and you can be happy whether or not you obtain it or not, because you're not basing your inner feelings on external things. That's what the unenlightened mind does, is it'll base its inner feelings on something external, and it can only be happy if it gets what it wants. So this meditation is really important to be able to train your mind to let go, let go, let go. And eventually when you do that enough and you're not chasing after things, you'll notice that the mind will become more and more peaceful and more joyful. This is why I mentioned to you that the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. It's not about believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning and growing and developing in this life to get to the ideal life now in this life, where you can gradually train your mind and uproot these pollutions. So you'll be able to see that your mind is moving closer and closer to enlightenment, because you know situations where you're angry and sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or any of these other feelings that you experience. When you're in that same situation and you're no longer experiencing those feelings and your mind's quite peaceful and joyful, you'll know it's these teachings that are leading to that, because you've been training your mind in these teachings and you can see it gradually becoming more peaceful and joyful. One of the big misunderstandings about the teachings of the Buddha is that people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You can see in his own teachings that it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. And you know this to be true because anything you've ever done in life has been exactly the same way. Whether it's to learn a certain language like English, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You're probably still learning English. I know I am, right? We're all still learning, right? We're still gradually learning, right? Or some job or occupation that you might have. It was gradual training, gradual practice, or gradual progress that you were able to learn those skills. So getting to enlightenment is the same way. You can't just learn and just instantly get to enlightenment. So it's going to be a journey if you would like to move your mind to this enlightened mental state. But it's a permanent fix, that the mind will be permanently fixed in this enlightened mental state. So all the different teachings and all the different programs and courses that I have here are to be able to help students to be able to learn this path so that you can experience this transformation in your life. But it's for each individual student to decide if that's what they would like to do. And all the different programs here to guide you to be able to help you do that. This afternoon at 1 p.m., I'm going to be teaching what's called an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, which is going to be able to help you to be able to get started with the teachings of the Buddha if you would like to attend. It's completely free. All of our programs are available at no cost. It's from 1 to 4 p.m., where I start off with some meditation, and then I teach you kind of a little bit of the historical aspect of the teachings of the Buddha and kind of looking at them from afar. But then eventually we get into the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. It explains to you the problem that the Buddha discovered in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. In 4 simple statements, he's explaining to you exactly what's going on in your mind and how to actually fix it. And you can independently verify what he's teaching is true. So if you'd like to join that program, you're welcome to come here at 1 o'clock today. And I'm going to be helping students to be able to get started on the path to enlightenment and learning and getting introduced to the teachings of the Buddha. And then on Monday, I have what's called the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course, where Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to be teaching all the foundational teachings to really get you rooted in the teachings and really get you started. And you can come to any part of that, because maybe you're only here until Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. You can come to any part of that program that you like. And then on Sundays, I teach what's called the group learning program, where each Sunday morning and evening, I teach from this book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is volume 1 of a 13-volume book series, where I gradually walk students through this each Sunday, covering a chapter. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. at home, I'll be teaching chapter 9, which is titled, What is Karma and How Does It Affect Me? This is a natural law that the Buddha helped you to be able to awaken to, where you can see the truth about this natural law. I'm going to explain what the 4 types of karma are and how to extinguish your unwholesome karma. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesome results. What karma is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about anything mystical or magical. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's literally cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. And what you experience in your day-to-day life is based on the decisions that you're making. So with the lack of wisdom of this natural law, you'll tend to make unwise decisions that are going to lead to unwholesome results. And when that's occurring, the mind will typically blame it on other people. When you're experiencing unwholesome results in your life, you might blame it on someone else. Or you might say it's good luck or bad luck. Or you might say it's destiny or fate. Or you might say it's from God or some entity called the universe. If you blame these kinds of things that you're experiencing on other people or these other things, you'll never cultivate the wisdom you need in order to make better decisions. Because if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if you're not cultivating wisdom about this natural law, then you're not going to be able to get to the point where you're making different decisions to experience different results. And you'll keep experiencing the same things over and over and over again. This is why you might be experiencing broken relationships over and over and over and over again, because the mind's not ever cultivating wisdom of how to have harmonious relationships with the people around you. But the mind's going to be all too comfortable with blaming what you experience on other people. And as long as you keep doing that, you're never going to cultivate the wisdom you need to have improved relationships. So the teachings of the Buddha could be thought of as like a self-help program. It's a way for you to do this inner work, to grow and develop and heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is inside one's own mind. Because again, people typically think that it's the outside world. But when you come to understand through independent verification of the teachings of the Buddha that it's what's going on in your own mind that's causing the challenges and difficulties and struggles in your life, you can actually overcome those challenges. But by not being able to see that truth, then you never cultivate the wisdom that you need to be able to overcome the challenges, and you'll keep experiencing them over and over and over again. So there's this program on Sunday that I teach little by little, about an hour and a half each Sunday here at the temple, and I teach it at home from my home studio. I don't have a live audience there, but I live stream it so that no matter what time zone you're in, you can be able to gradually learn the teachings of the Buddha. And then there's other courses and retreats that I share as well. But what this program is called the Pali Canon and English Study Group, where each Saturday I come together with students and help them to understand the original teachings of the Buddha through the Buddha's own words. The Pali Canon is the original source teachings of the Buddha. It's the largest, most complete collection we have of his teachings. It's 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. And what this book series does, the 13 books, is it extracts the most important teachings out of that. And we've assembled it into 13 books so that it's more approachable for you. Because those 45 volumes of books, it would take you an extensive amount of time to learn it in that way. So what we do is we do this program more like a study group, where all the other programs that I do, it's more like a traditional style of learning where I teach for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I open up to questions. I teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then open up to questions and things like this. Where this program, what we do is I open up to volunteers here at the temple and anybody who's on Zoom to be able to read a chapter, which these are the words of the Buddha. And you can see this particular chapter, it's not even a page long. These are the words of the Buddha. You have the words of the Buddha here. You have a reference that takes you back to the Pali Canon. And then you've got words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how to integrate this into your life. And by learning through the words of the Buddha, you can actually gain more and more understanding of what he actually taught. Because it might be a surprise to you that while 500 million people consider themselves to be Buddhist, a very small percentage of those people are actually learning with the original words of the Buddha. I've visited over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that actually shares the original words of the Buddha. That's less than 1%. So very few people are studying with his original words. But if you don't study with his original words, you won't know what he taught and you won't know what he didn't teach. So it's so important to study with his original words. So what I do is I open up to volunteers to be able to read this chapter. Then I will share some teachings on that. Then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to this particular chapter. We're in volume 11 here, which is titled The Realms of Existence. And right now, this particular set of chapters, it's teaching about the cycle of rebirth. The cycle of rebirth is actually something you can also independently verify. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but there's actually ways for you to independently verify this cycle of rebirth. But we'll get into it when we talk about this chapter. The way that I do the program is that if you guys would like to volunteer here to read, I have microphones here in the white bowl. If you could just come get a microphone, press the gray button, you're going to see the lights come on, and then you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And for anybody who's in Zoom, you can also volunteer to read by just electronically raising your hand, unmuting your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream as well. When we get to the question period, you can also ask questions. If you guys could use the microphones, that would be great. And you can take these microphones back to your seat because you might actually have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone. And if you're not using it, if you wouldn't mind turning off the microphone, then we won't get feedback through the speakers. Then for anybody who's online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comments section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. So is there anybody who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Sure. Thank you, Tom.
Chapter 111, The Mother's Milk. Monks, this cycle of rebirth is without discoverable beginning. The first point is not identifiable of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance, unknowing of true reality, and fettered by craving. What do you think, monks? Which is more, the mother's milk that you have drunk as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, this, or the water in the four great oceans? As we understand the teachings taught by the perfectly enlightened one, Venerable Sir, the mother's milk that we have drunk as we roamed and wandered on through this long course, this alone is more than the water in the four great oceans. Good, monks. It is good that you understand the teachings taught by me in such a way. The mother's milk that you have drunk as you roamed and wandered through this long course, this alone is more than the water in the four great oceans. For what reason? Because, monks, this cycle of rebirth is without discoverable beginning. A first point is not identifiable of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance, unknowing of true reality, and fettered by craving. For such a long time, monks, you have experienced discontentedness, misery, and disaster, and swelled this cemetery. It is enough to experience fading away of strong feelings towards all conditions, enough to become free from strong feelings towards them, enough to be liberated from them.
Okay, thank you, sir. So these are the words of the Buddha where he's describing this cycle of rebirth having had countless rebirths, and that it's not discoverable of when the beginning of the cycle of rebirth started. Because oftentimes the mind in the unenlightened state is really longing, yearning, like, how did we get here? Why are we here? You know, what is my purpose here? There's all these questions that sometimes the mind has, right? Well, what the Buddha is saying is when all of this started, it's not discoverable. And the reason why is because none of us were there when it occurred. Even if somebody says, this is how the world started, well, there's no way to independently verify that because none of us were actually there. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is it's all based in wisdom. You need to be able to get to wisdom. You need to be able to get to truth. That's what's going to allow you to make wise decisions in the world. But if your mind is longing, yearning to know, how did the world start? How did it all get going? Why am I here? All these different things. The mind can just long and yearn for those answers, and you can't actually figure it out. It's not possible for you to know. So people have said various things over the years of how they think the world started. Okay, that's your opinion, that's your view, but none of us were actually there when it started in this particular form, so we don't actually know, and the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that it's undiscoverable. He does teach this cycle of rebirth. As I mentioned to you, it's independently verifiable. Oftentimes people believe they only have one life, and that might be because right now you can't remember or recall your previous lives. But as you're training your mind on this path to enlightenment and you're lifting the pollution out of your mind, you might get to a point where you start having vivid memories of your past lives. This is something that some people experience. That's how the Buddha knew that there was the cycle of rebirth, is that he started having memories of his previous lives. When you're in the unenlightened state and your mind's polluted, it's kind of like going out on the street from your house and you just see one street. That's all you see. It's just the street that you're on. But when you move to this higher consciousness, getting rid of this pollution out of your mind, it's like moving to a higher vantage point. It's like going up to the top of a mountain. And now when you go to the top of this mountain, you can see more of how the streets all interconnect with each other. And you can see how this town connects to this town and that town connects to this town. You can see more of what's going on in this life and in all your previous lives. So some people experience this. So that's why the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth, because if you started having vivid memories of your past lives and you didn't understand that that's normal, you could think you're going crazy. It could really shake you up. Maybe you'd have like repetitive thoughts of being murdered over and over and over and over again in your mind. And if you had that going on and you didn't realize that that was your past life, it could really shake you up because obviously you haven't been murdered in this life, right? So the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth because it's true and it's something that you might experience where you have vivid memories of your previous lives. In this book series, in volume 11, chapter 105, I share 17 different criteria of how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. So if somebody was interested in independently verifying it, they can actually verify it through those 17 different criteria. But right now, you might be believing you only have one life. And that's fine if that's where you're at right now, because the cycle of rebirth isn't something that you typically approach when you first get started on the path to enlightenment. It's usually something that people approach after they've already been studying for a year and a half, 2 years or beyond, because none of these teachings are about belief. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha, while they will lead you to enlightenment and you will escape the cycle of rebirth, having gotten to enlightenment, that's not what the Buddha's really focused on. He's focused on helping you to eliminate discontentedness, eliminating the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings. That's what he focuses his teachings on. And it just so happens that the same cause and condition that is producing discontentedness is also what's producing rebirth. So when you train your mind to get to enlightenment, completely purifying the mind of its pollutions, not only will your mind be peaceful and joyful in this life, and you'll see your mind's able to do that, but you'll see that you're not going to experience rebirth over and over and over again. But again, this isn't something that people usually approach right at the beginning of their journey to enlightenment, because what's happened in the past, it's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is right now in this human state, if your mind is experiencing these discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others, you would like to eliminate it. And that's what the teachings of the Buddha are doing for you. But here, all the way in volume 11, right? Most students are going to start at volume 1, right? All the way in volume 11, after a student's been studying for probably a good 2 years by this point, they're starting to learn about the cycle of rebirth. And what the Buddha is saying here is that the milk that you drink from your mother in all your previous lives is more voluminous than all the water in all the seas. They only knew about 4 oceans during the lifetime of the Buddha. Today, we consider there to be 5 oceans or 5 great seas, right? But during the lifetime of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, they were aware of 4 of them. So if you've ever done any scuba diving or anything like that, and you saw how much water there is in the world, the Buddha is saying that you've drank more milk from your mother than all of that. So basically what he's saying is you've had countless rebirths. And what we know about the world is we know it to be about 4.5 billion years old. That's what we know right now, that in terms of the earth itself, we think it's about 4.5 billion years old. Well, in that period of time, if you can think about countless rebirths, a snake, a lizard, a squirrel, a rabbit, a turtle, all these different things that we were over the years, and even human beings as well, there's just been countless rebirths. That's what the Buddha is explaining here. And he's saying that what we've been doing is that we've been roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. What he's talking about here is this ignorance, or this unknowing of true reality, is the lack of wisdom that the mind has in the unenlightened state. With your lack of wisdom, you'll continue to make unwise decisions, continuing to experience difficulties and struggles over and over and over and over again. And because of that ignorance, craving will continue in the mind. What craving is that longing, yearning that I was talking about, the cause of discontentedness, that the mind is holding on to something, it's clinging to something, wanting it to be permanent, and it can only be happy if it gets what it wants, and then when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry, sad, or frustrated. So it's because of craving that the mind is continuing to experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other things over and over and over again. But it's because of the mind's ignorance, or the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality, the confusion and misunderstanding, that the craving continues to exist. Because the mind in the unenlightened state has this lack of wisdom. It firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry. That's why when you get angry, you probably push people away, like your friends and family. You might push them away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But you can see it doesn't solve the problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If they were the true cause of the problem, when you push them out of your life, you wouldn't get angry or frustrated anymore. Because of this lack of wisdom, this unknowing of true reality, when you get angry, you'll think it's somebody else. And not only will you push people away, but you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, perhaps, through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do when you don't understand that the anger is coming from your own mind, your own craving, is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them or force them to do things your way. In fact, you might even have people doing this to you. People might be pushing you away. They might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they might be putting their expectations on you and trying to control you to do things their way. This is the mind's lack of wisdom, that it's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. The mind thinks if I can just get things my way, everything will be perfect. So the mind continues to stay stuck in this constant cycle of experiencing anger and frustration and sadness over and over and over again. But it's also stuck in this rebirth cycle as well, that it keeps coming back into the world over and over and over again. So as long as there's craving in the mind's going to continue to get angry and frustrated and sad and all these other things. And where that's all coming from is the ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. And that's why the antidote to that is wisdom. And that's why the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You need to get to wisdom. You need to transform your mind to be able to know true reality and be able to make wise decisions in the world. You can't get to enlightenment through belief. It's just not possible. You need to awaken to enlightenment. And when we say awaken, what we're talking about is cultivation of wisdom. And as you're cultivating wisdom, then you're going to learn how to eliminate your craving and your anger. And now bringing that to an end, your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful as you're gradually making your way to this mental state. So the Buddha is saying you've been roaming and wandering through this cycle of rebirth for all this time. And he's saying, hey, this beginning of the cycle of rebirth, it's without discoverable beginning. Because now you can just let that go and realize, like, hey, I don't need to know when all this stuff started. All I need to know is how to get out of this, right? How to get out of this constant stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear. And that's what he says here, that the cycle of rebirth is without discoverable beginning. But he's saying, essentially, you don't need to know that, because it's enough to experience the fading away of strong feelings towards all conditions, enough to become free from strong feelings, and then towards towards them and getting liberated from them. That's what we call enlightenment, is when the mind's liberated, when it's free, right? So he's saying that's enough. Just focus on getting to enlightenment. Don't worry about when all this stuff started. Just focus now on getting to enlightenment, where you can get free and liberated from these strong feelings, where you don't have to walk around being angry, frustrated, and agitated with bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind. You'd like to get free of all of that stuff. And that's what he's guiding you to do in all of his other teachings. So this isn't where someone would typically start their journey to enlightenment, learning a chapter like this. But this program is kind of suited for people who've already established a foundation or a framework in the teachings of the Buddha. And then you come into a program like this to kind of fill that in, right? That's why this is volume 11. But if this is your first time here, no worries. You'll still learn plenty by walking through this, and I'll help you to be able to see these teachings. Do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Anything that I've been sharing? Anything I've been talking about? For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, looks like we have a question coming in here on Zoom. 1 second. There's an individual named Clover. Hi, David. This is not related to this chapter, but regarding impermanence and letting go. My father was diagnosed with cancer yesterday. When my mom told me the news, I was shocked for a moment, but then calmed down very quickly to think about what to do and how to support them. Not much emotion or crying was experienced. My question is how to distinguish between indifference and knowing of the unknowing of true reality. Is the lack of emotional experience because of my indifference or because I understand this is life? Indifference is like you could care less about what's going on with other people. You have a lack of compassion. So if there's a lack of compassion, it's like what compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. And obviously you don't have that towards your father. You do have care and concern. But the reason why you don't have that emotional response is because your mind isn't craving permanence. If you understand impermanence, you understand that of course dad cannot be permanently healthy. It's not possible. But what the mind does in the unenlightened state, because of its craving for permanence, it will crave permanent health, or it'll crave permanent youthfulness, or it'll crave permanent life, right? So now when you experience your sickness or the sickness of people close to you, your mind will be sad or angry or grieve. It's not your love that's causing that sadness or anger or frustration or grief. It's the mind craving permanence. So the way you distinguish between indifference versus the mind understanding impermanence is just ask yourself, do you have care and concern for the misfortune of your father? And of course the answer is yes, right? So that's where you can see that it's not love or care that causes these strong feelings. It's the craving for permanence. And that's why you even got upset at the beginning, where you had a little bit of an emotional response. But eventually you can get to the point where you don't have that. So for example, on Wednesday morning, I found out my grandmother died, right? So today's Saturday. My grandmother's 102 years old, or she was, and she died on Wednesday. I didn't cry. I wasn't upset. But obviously, I love my grandmother, right? I'm not going to miss her. I don't feel lonely or bored because in my 20s, when I trained my mind to be able to let go of grandma, I understand she's impermanent. She's not going to be in this world permanently. But if you're craving permanence when these people are dying around you, you'll have a really hard time with that. And my grandmother was very impactful in my life. She was probably the most influential figure that I had in my life, even beyond my mother, my father, anybody else that was in my life. So when she died, there was no craving for permanence. So there was no grief or sadness or sorrow. But of course, I cared about my grandmother. I love her dearly, just like I love everybody in the world. So you can get to a point where you don't feel like the carpet is being pulled out from under your feet, or you're being chopped off at the knees when people are sick or dying, or even your own death. If you get close to death and you're holding on to this world, wanting it to be permanent, it'll be very painful for you as you're getting close to death. So you would like to get to the point where your mind's not holding on and craving for these things to be permanent. And then Clover's asking another question here. A second question is, I was ashamed in front of my mother and my partner to not show much emotion at the moment. I feel that crying was expected, but I didn't cry. Yeah, so what happened is you adopted this expectation that just because someone's sick, I have to cry. Right? And that's a sign of my love and my care for my dad. That's the lack of wisdom that the mind has. The mind has this lack of wisdom, thinking that crying is a result of love, and therefore if I'm not crying, I didn't love my dad. And now you've adopted this expectation of yourself that everybody who loves someone will cry, right? And that's not true. That crying or that sorrowness, that displeasure is coming from the mind craving permanence. So you can get rid of that expectation and understand that it's normal for someone who doesn't have attachment, that they're not going to experience any emotional feelings when somebody dies or when someone's sick. And it's not because you don't care, you don't love, it's just because you understand impermanence, that this person is impermanent and they're not going to be in this world permanently, and their body is impermanent. It's just like when you go outside and the wind blows. You don't cry, you're not upset, because that's a normal thing that happens, and you know that the wind's going to blow. Well, if you understand impermanence, when your dad's sick or your mom's sick, well, of course, because they're impermanent. Their body's impermanent. It's just like the wind's blowing. Or when grandma died on Wednesday, well, of course grandma died, right? Because she was born, she had to die, right? This isn't indifference. It's just understanding, like, just like the wind blows, these are normal occurrences that are happening in the world. And it doesn't have to be so shocking to us, because if the mind's holding on and craving permanence, that's where you'll be shocked and you'll have difficulties. But if you understand, when you go outside, you're not upset because the wind's blowing. It's the same thing, that you don't need to be upset and angry or crying or sorrowful when someone dies or when someone's sick, because it's just completely normal, just like the wind blowing. You're welcome. Pleased to help you. Okay. Don't see any other questions anywhere else. Okay, so why don't we do this next chapter and see if someone would like to read this one. Would somebody like to read this chapter, chapter 112? Sure. Yeah, you can grab a microphone here.
Mic check, okay. In misfortune and misery in the long course. Monks, the cycle of rebirth is without discoverable beginnings. At first point, it's not inevitable of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance, unknowing of the true reality, and fettered by craving. Whenever you see anyone in misfortune and misery, you can conclude we have two experiences in the same thing in the long course. For what reason? Because monks, the cycle of rebirth is without discoverable beginnings. The first point is not identifiable of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance, unknowing of the true reality, and fettered by cravings. For such a long time, monks, you have experienced discontentness, misery, and disaster, and swelled by the cemetery. It is enough to experience fading away of strong feelings towards all conditions, enough to become free from strong feelings towards them, enough to be liberated from them.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So here, this is a great little discourse where the Buddha is basically saying that because you've been reborn so many times and you've had so many existences, that today, whenever you see somebody experiencing misfortune, that you can be assured that you experience those same misfortunes, right? This is a way to help you arise compassion in your mind and help you arise loving kindness. What loving kindness is a wholesome quality of mind that's going to help you get rid of your anger, your frustration, your irritation, your annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards other beings. Right now, there's probably certain people in the world that you like, and there's probably certain people you dislike. This is actually coming from your own mind. Sometimes people think it's coming from the other person, but it's actually coming from your own mind, because your mind has certain expectations. It wants people to be this way. And when people meet your expectations, oh, you're happy, you like them, right? But then when people aren't meeting your expectations, you will dislike them. This is the mind craving permanence, thinking that everybody in the world should function the same way as you. The mind has these expectations that it builds up. And this is the mind's ego too. The mind thinks my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And if people do it my way, I like them. But if they don't do it my way, I dislike them, right? So you can get to the point where you don't even have the slightest dislike towards other people, where you understand we're all different. We're going to do things differently. We're not all going to do things the same way, and that's okay. That's just impermanence. But if your mind craves permanence and wants and expects everyone to be a certain way, there'll be people that you like and there'll be people you dislike. But when you get rid of that and you just understand everyone's different and that's okay, you can love everybody. So loving kindness is where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards them. And you're not judging people to determine whether they deserve your loving kindness or not. Because sometimes we're taught, don't respect others until they respect you, right? Well, if everybody was practicing don't respect others until they respect you, well, that means nobody's respecting anybody. Because it's like, hey, Terrence, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. And then you're like, well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me, right? And now we're all stuck. Nobody's respecting anybody, right? So if you have loving kindness and you're like, I'm not going to be loving and kind to you until you're loving and kind with me first. Well, nobody's going to be loving and kind to anybody. So an enlightened being doesn't think that way. They understand that it's wise to be loving and kind with everybody. And you would like to be loving and kind with everybody around you. And there's going to be some people who will be loving and kind with you, but because of impermanence, there's going to be some people who aren't loving and kind with you. But just because they're having anger and hatred in their mind doesn't mean you have to have anger and hatred in your mind, right? Because this is just impermanence. If you have an expectation for everybody to treat you a certain way, when people treat you that way, you'll be happy. But when they don't treat you that way, you'll be angry and frustrated. But that's because your mind has an expectation that the world should be permanent, that everybody's going to treat you exactly this way you want them to treat you. So you can get rid of that and just realize the world is impermanent. Some people are going to treat you lovely and kind and respectful and polite, and other people aren't. And you get to make choices about who you spend time with. And if someone's being impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, just walk away. Right? You don't need to sit there and try to convince them to treat you a certain way. That's their choice to treat you that way. And your choice is, I'm not interested in spending time with this person and I'm just going to go somewhere else. Right? But you can maintain your joy and your peacefulness. You can maintain your love and your kindness, which is a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. And then this particular discourse also helps you to arise compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others, where what the opposites of these are is indifference would be like you could care less what happens with other people. You see someone who's maybe homeless or in poverty, or maybe they're struggling with a drug addiction and you're just indifferent and you could care less. You're like, I don't care. That's not my family. That's not my family. I don't care. That would be unwise, right? That's the mind having indifference. But the other side of compassion is worry and anxiety, where every time you see somebody struggling in the world, you're so worried. Oh my goodness, that homeless cat, it's on the street. Or, oh my goodness, those children, they don't have food. What are we going to do? Right? Your mind's really worried and having anxiety. So the middle way is to practice compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And one of the ways to help you arise that is to realize that you've experienced the same misfortunes of anybody that you see. If you see that homeless person on the street, what the Buddha is teaching you is you've experienced that same misfortune, either in this life or some previous life. Or you see that person is having challenges with drugs and alcohol, you've experienced that same thing in this life or some previous life. So it helps you to get out of this indifference. If the mind is indifferent, it helps you to bring in this compassion. Whether you choose to do something about this or not is a choice for you to make. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to cultivate the mental quality where you can have compassion for these beings. The action behind that compassion is a whole different question and is something that you need to decide in the moment based on each individual situation. But it would be wise for you to cultivate this compassion because it's going to bring your mind out of the indifference and it's going to bring your mind out of this worry and anxiety. And it'll also bring your mind into not only more compassion, but more love and kindness for other beings, which will take you away from your anger and bitterness and hostility, because that's what the mind's going to have. When it has anger and bitterness and hostility, it's lacking loving kindness, which is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So by understanding that we've been in the cycle of rebirth for so many countless lives, and we've experienced so many misfortunes in the past. And even in this life, we've experienced certain misfortunes. When you see somebody else experiencing some unfortunate situation, you can have compassion for them. You can have love and kindness. Maybe you are no longer experiencing those misfortunes, but at one time you did. And it's wise for you to think about that when you see people that are experiencing misfortunes. Not because you're interested in being worried or having anxiety, but you're interested in bringing your mind to the middle where you can just have concern for their misfortune. And then whether or not you take action, like I mentioned, is a whole nother different question. So do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Remember, you guys can use the mics here or online. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Okay. I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just in class here. I usually do 10 chapters at night when I do this at home at 9 p.m. because when I do this at home at 9 p.m., we actually don't do meditation together online. Other programs I do meditation online with students, but this particular program on Saturday night, we don't do meditation. So we study actually 10 chapters in the evening. And these are students that typically have been studying with me for quite a long while. So if you're interested in exploring this and getting deeper into this type of study, Saturday nights are really good time for you. If you'd like to just get started with the Path to Enlightenment, just starting at the beginning and starting to kind of understand whether you'd even be interested in this path or not, this afternoon at 1 p.m. would be a great opportunity for that, or even the Sunday classes at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Those are really helpful as well. So, oh, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Do you also go over the path of awakening?
Yeah, that's what the path to enlightenment is to awaken the mind. And what we mean by awakening the mind is there's a certain cultivation of wisdom. One of the ways you might think about it is like when we all grew up, we learned how to clean our body, right? And our parents gave us the training and the knowledge to do this. And as we were doing it as a little child, at first, we didn't see the wisdom in it. We didn't see why it was wise to clean the body. We were little kids. We were just having so much fun playing. The last thing we were thinking about was cleaning the body. But over time, as we got older, we kind of liked it. We were like, this feels good to take a shower every day. I'm going to start doing this on my own. My mom and dad don't have to tell me anymore. Well, there's this other part to this being, which is the mind. And our parents didn't teach us how to clean the mind because they didn't have the wisdom themselves. So you're in a place now, Thailand, that understands how to clean the mind. And now as an adult, you can learn how to clean your mind, because it's like the body. If you walked around for weeks or months or years without cleaning it, you'd be pretty uncomfortable. It's the same thing with the mind. If you don't clean the mind, you'll walk around feeling pretty uncomfortable with stress and anxiety and these other feelings. So what the entire path to enlightenment is to teach you how to awaken or cultivate wisdom of how to get to this enlightened mental state through cleaning up the mind and purifying the mind. So everything the Buddha taught is all about awakening the mind. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I do have to go, but I want to thank you for the nice lesson.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm actually ending class right now. So if you guys would like to attend any of these classes or courses or retreats, you're more than welcome to do that. There's all these different options for you to learn and grow and develop. I'd just like to thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for being interested to come and learn. And whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. And perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.